Hello, everyone, and welcome to this very special episode of Ezoic Explains. I am Tyler Bishop, and today I'm going to be talking about Q2 advertising rates and the global pandemic that's going on. So ad rates are at a historic low right now. So we can see here on Friday, April 3rd, an index score of 37. So the index is basically looking at ad rates across the web. It normalizes them and then bases that on a score of 1 to 100. Typically, at the start of every quarter, you will see pretty much a downturn in ad rates, and then things will start to move upwards throughout the quarter. And what we're seeing here is we are seeing one of the lowest ad rates we've ever seen since Thursday, May 12th, 2016. That was the last time the index was this low. So traditionally, what we've seen throughout the last few years is ad rates with a linear improvement pretty much across the board. And what you'll see is every month ad rates typically go up and then drop at the start of the next month. And that's because marketers typically, that's how they run their budgets. They run their budgets month over month. And to a more granular degree, they run them quarter to quarter. So that's why you'll see ad rates drop at the start of every quarter. You'll see them drop in July. You'll usually see them drop again at the start of October. But you'll see them spike heavily around Black Friday. You can see this is normally when the records are set. And Q4 is really one of the largest and highest earning times for publishers across the web. And so what you'll see is typically the end of the year drop being the most dramatic each year, because you have the end of a month, the end of a quarter, and the end of a year, which are a lot of major advertising budgets. Now, that being said, we're at the start of Q2, where we've basically hit rock bottom after the coronavirus pretty much flatlined Q1. As you can see, the growth was not very high here, and you typically see some growth there at the start of Q1, and we've seen a pretty big dramatic drop off here. So you can see here, just looking at 2019 versus 2020, how ad rates basically were a little bit lower to start the year to begin with, but it's really in March, whenever the crisis started expanding into North America to the degree that it has. And then as advertisers have adjusted their budgets, you can see things have just continued to decline, and actually things have continued to kind of trend in that negative position. You can also look at it from 2016, 2017, 2018, and on up. You can see the 2020 cohort here. This orange bar is doing fairly well, and that is up until about the second week of March. You can see things really start taking that turn, and now we're diving well below 2016 rates. So we are really seeing historic lows in overall ad earnings from publishers, and this is largely because of things like this, where you'll see this is a major hotel brand ad campaign. You can see right around here on the 13th of March, they've really started turning down their overall spend on their campaign. So what you're seeing is a lot of the advertisers that are having to hunker down, in many cases asking for government bailouts, being the ones that are turning down their campaigns. And this is resulting in lower overall competition. Not only are advertisers spending less, so publishers aren't getting revenue from those advertisers, but this is actually impacting competitive auctions on publisher sites. And historical bids are really what bids are based on by other advertisers. So what you're seeing right now isn't even as bad as things might get. It's more advertisers drop out and competition gets lower and lower. Programmatically, platforms like Google Ad Manager will continue to help advertisers understand where they can bid lower and buy inventory, publisher ad space cheaper and cheaper. So supply and demand is really critical here, because what we're finding is the supply for many publishers going up. What you're seeing is, because of especially news publishers that are writing a lot about the coronavirus, they're providing more and more ad impressions than they've ever provided before. Additionally, a lot of other publishers are having a lot more visitors or trying to provide more content than they've had in the past due to more free time or just decreased revenue. And this is leading to decreased demand, because the increase in supply, page views, and impressions is also impacting the fact that the demand is getting diluted even further, because now you have fewer advertisers bidding even lower, and now you actually have more ad space than you had before. This is compounding things. So Ideally, what you want as a publisher is a limited number of ad space with lots and lots of advertisers competing for it. And what you're getting in the case of the coronavirus pandemic is a fewer number of advertisers bidding lower and lower amount, and the ad inventory or the ad space actually increasing. So one of the things that publishers need to be very cautious about right now is increasing their ad impressions or the ads on the page to try to better monetize the fact that they, may be writing about the coronavirus, and that may be something that is causing a decrease in competition among advertisers because they've maybe blacklisted it. By not testing different sizes, locations right now for the best competition, you're really missing out on what could be something that could turn the tables for you, because with the increased number of impressions, you are going to see decreased demand. So sites that are basically leaving the same number of ads or increasing the number of ads and then not testing locations or sizes are the ones that are going to probably be the most negatively impacted as we move through Q2 into Q3. You can look at this basically by thinking of it in terms of Southwest is likely impacted in the same way. So Southwest right now, if they reduce the number of their flights, they're probably going to see slightly higher demand. And even with the reduced competition, they'll be able to charge more closely to their normal rates for their flights. However, if they decided to combat their lower revenue by just adding more and more flights, they're going to see a much lower demand because obviously people aren't traveling right now. And what you're going to see is much, much lower prices. They're basically going to have to fire sale their seat inventory. And this is what's happening with publishers. Because of the decreased demand and the increase in their inventory, their prices and what they're being paid for their ads is getting lower and lower. So what will happen next? Well, as the problem continues to get worse, and by the problem, I mean the pandemic, you can expect advertisers to continue to try to hoard as much cash as possible. But as people go back to work, Q2 is likely to start to improve. Traditionally, the end of Q2 has performed pretty well. And so if advertisers are confident that things are going to start improving, the spend will increase and demand will start to go back up. But until then, publishers really need to be focusing on the number of ads they have on the page, their sizes and locations, because this is ultimately going to be the only leverage they have to constrict the supply as the demand is continuing to diminish. This is especially true for sites in travel niches or other niches that are have advertisers that are very grossly impacted by this. And that is why and how publishers should be addressing the lowered ad rates inside of Q2, is they should really be ensuring that they are testing ad locations, ad density, and ad size to account for the changes in ad demand. Ultimately, I do think that as you see people start to return to work and you see the stock market start to recover, you will see ad rates start to turn back up. Digitally, it's the fastest way for advertisers to pull their advertising, but it's also one of the fastest ways to start spending again. So these are both good and bad things for digital publishers, and 2020 will hopefully end a lot better than it began. Thanks again for joining me. I'm Tyler Bishop.